Flat Out of Luck, Episode 3. You'll Be Grand.
Luke stood in the middle of his living room, staring up at the ceiling. The dark patch above him had grown. The dripping hadn't stopped. In fact, it had gotten worse. Now a steady plop, plop, plop into the plastic bowl he'd placed on the floor. He'd emptied it twice already that day. He took out his phone and scrolled through his messages to the landlord.
I'll sort that out soon. I'll give you a shout. These things take time.
It had been 4 days. Luke was losing patience.
I can't keep living like this.
He looked up again. The leak was clearly coming from the ceiling above. Maybe it was coming from the flat upstairs? He hesitated, then made a decision.
Right, I'll talk to the neighbor.
Luke walked up the stairs and knocked gently on the door above his flat. After a moment, a man in his 30s opened it.
Hi there, sorry to bother you. I live in the flat below and there's a leak in my ceiling. I think it might be coming from your flat.
The man looked at him in surprise.
Oh, really? Jesus, I didn't notice anything. But now that you say it, yeah, my washing machine kind of flooded out the place last week.
Flooded out.
Yeah, it overflowed. Water everywhere. Nightmare. But I thought I cleaned it up. If it's still dripping down to you, I'll have a look later.
Luke nodded slowly, only half sure what had just been said.
Okay, thanks. I'll tell the landlord again.
No bother. You'll be grand.
Luke walked back downstairs.
You'll be grand.
He repeated.
What does that even mean?
Back in his flat, he messaged Mr. Harris again.
I just spoke to the neighbor upstairs. He mentioned some problems with his washing machine. The leak in my ceiling is still getting worse.
A few minutes later, a reply came.
That's probably it, so I'll have a look next week.
Next week.
Luke said out loud. He nearly threw his phone on the sofa. At the office the next morning, Luke sat down at his desk, still frustrated. Declan walked past with a coffee.
Luke, could you pull together a few slides for the Thursday check-in? Just a quick update on what you've been working on.
Luke nodded.
Sure, I can do that.
But in his head, he wasn't exactly sure what pull together a few slides really meant. How many slides? What should be included? Should it look professional? He played it safe. That afternoon, he spent 2 hours designing a mini presentation. Titles, visuals, even a small chart. Thursday arrived. In the meeting room, a few people were chatting as Luke opened his laptop.
Thanks, Luke,
Said Declan.
Fire away when you're ready.
Luke clicked to the first slide and began presenting. He explained everything clearly and carefully, just as he had practiced. But halfway through, Aoife leaned over and whispered.
This is a little more than I expected.
Declan gave a small laugh.
Fair play, Luke. That's very thorough. I just meant a few quick slides.
Luke's face went red.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was meant to be more formal.
Aoife smiled.
Classic first week mistake. Don't worry, you'll be grand.
After the meeting, Aoife walked back to Luke's desk.
By the way, about your leak. If the landlord doesn't do anything soon, you can report it to the council or contact a tenants advice group. You've got options.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, some landlords are great. Others, they won't lift a finger unless you push.
Good to know. Thanks, Aoife.
He felt a little better. The leak was still there. He was still confused at times at work. But now, at least he wasn't completely on his own. Maybe he'd be able